Have you ever seen two similar games? They have mechanics that are alike yet different? Well, I have. Danny's World. I'm sure you know about the game. Or maybe you don't. Anyways, there has been many games made after Danny's World that's obviously inspired. They have similar game mechanics, gameplay loops, and character roles. All these result into what I'd call a new subgenre within the survival game genre. If you don't know anything about Danny's World, don't fret. I'll give you the rundown. You can play as one of the many toons, all specialized in a particular role. There's extractors, supports, and survivalists. Before I can fully explain these roles, I'll have to explain the gameplay itself. The game has a simple gameplay loop. You extract from a machine, get spotted by a Twisted, get chased by the Twisted, lose line of sight of the Twisted, rinse and complete until you either finish the floor or die. As the floors progress, you'll get more Twisteds and more machines. To aid your progression, you'll have your team, items, and trinkets. Items either boost one of your stats or heal you. Trinkets are more complicated. Some boost stats, some give items, and some highlight stuff. The ones that boost stats, some are permanent like dog flesh and some aren't, like Vanity Mirror, which only activates during panic mode. And there are also trinkets that can do stuff like give out items. If they give out items, they're one-time use like Fancy Purse, which gives you 100 tapes at the start of the run, or they give pretty lackluster items like Korean Set, which gives you a random common item, which aren't that impressive, all things considered. Now, for the ones that do give out items, it could either be after every floor or every other floor. Teammates help in a variety of ways. They can call out items for you, take Twisted off of you on purpose. This is different from leading Twisted to them, as you shouldn't be purposefully doing that. Or using their ability to support you. If their ability is made to support a teammate, they fall under the support category. Characters like Astro, Cosmo, Sprout, Goob, and many more fall under this category. Cosmo and Sprout both heal. Astro refills stamina, which can be useful if you're running out, and Goob holds Twists while taking aggro due to his low stealth, and being able to survive easier due to him being a survivalist.
Now, speaking of Goop having high survivability, there are, in fact, other toons like him. They're called survivalists. Survivalists are meant to survive all by themselves. Most have high speed, with the exceptions of a few like Connie and Scraps. If they don't have high speed, then they have the ability to help them, with like Connie's being able to turn invisible or Scraps' ability just being bad. The issue with survivalists is their low extraction speed, which can be fixed via trinkets. Then there's extractors, which are made to extract from machines, usually at the cost of survivability, but this isn't always the case. If they do have low survivability, this can be fixed with speed trinkets, mainly the ones that fix your run speed, as you probably wouldn't be able to outwalk Twisteds if you have a low speed count, even with speed trinkets. Now, what if you have a high-speed survivalist that's also an extractor? Well, then you have an all-rounder like Yada, though she has low stam. This isn't true for all all-rounders, though. They're typically good for solo runs. Now, back onto survivalists, you may wonder what other survivalists there are other than Connie and Scraps, you know, the actually fast ones. Well, there's Bassie, Goob, and then for the slower side, but not as slow, there's Tegan and Poppy, and obviously much more. Now an example of extractors are Shelly, Brusha, and Gigi, and of course way more. And then last time I checked, all the all-rounders, unless I missed them, all-rounders are Louie, Tisha, Yada, Flight, Eclipse, and Gordy, though this may change in the future.
Now there's distracting. Distracting is when a toon rounds up all the Twisteds and runs in a circle. Or that's at least a grossly simplified way of explaining it, since depending on the Twisted, it can, in fact, spice up the gameplay, but a lot of the times you're just running in a circle. This allows extractors to extract without being spotted by any Twisteds. This fundamentally breaks the gameplay loop, as being spotted by a Twisted is a part of it. The role is generally a bit more complicated than the ones I mentioned earlier, as it's a fan-made role that the game both implements yet doesn't. Bassie has high stealth to allow her to give items to distractors. Despite this, distractors aren't properly compensated for their work, honestly. You're better off just extracting and getting more eye quirk. And a lot of people consider the game more boring with distractors since it fundamentally makes the game less of a survival game, considering one person's doing all the surviving with all the dangerous twists on their back. Despite all this, you may still wonder what distractor tunes are out there. Well, there's Pebble, Goob, Flutter, and more. If you remembered that Goob is a survivalist, you'd be correct. Distractors are all actually either survivalists or all-rounders, though survivalists are much more favored since they have higher stam. The closest thing to a pure distractor tune is Pebble, but even then, Pebble's kit, besides his active, is built around surviving. He is one of the best survivalists in the game, but his stealth does kind of get in the way of his distracting, especially in public runs where people may not be the smartest. Anyways, I won't dwell too much on distractors since they're not completely official to Danny's World, but keep in mind they are implemented in the other games I'm going to talk about.
Now, you may also wonder about the Twisted. Since they're the main threat, they're really important to this game. There's too much unique Twisteds to cover for the purpose of this essay. There is 4 tiers Twisteds out there. There's commons, uncommons, rares, and mains. As you can guess, 3 of them tells you how common each Twisted are and thus how dangerous they are. The more rare, the more dangerous, or at least how it's supposed to be. Mains are in fact the most dangerous technically, but due to how Twisteds are, they're actually more common than the rares. Because by the time you get to high floors, there's more chance for mains to spawn, which makes it so that the higher the floor, the more common than rares at some point. Now, after going over the Twisteds, there's something else important that I'm sure you haven't forgotten. Machines. As you know, they're the only way to progress floors. You have to get all the machines done, or you don't go to the next floor. There's 3 machine types so far. There's regular machines that just give you a skill check, which you must hit, either gray or gold. If you hit gold, it adds more progression to the machine. If you don't hit the skill check properly, it alerts Twisteds, which is bad. Well, only if they're nearby, though. Circle machine skill checks are even smaller. Treadmills are a bit more unique. Instead of implementing distraction and skill check stats, they implement stamina and speed stats. Talking about the faster you are, the faster it fills up. And to make it fill up faster, you could sprint. And then for a skill check, instead you just kind of spam. It's just spam. It's really, really easy. Unlike, honestly, regular old skill checks are somehow harder than this. Now, moving on to machines, I think this is the perfect time to talk about stats since I already mentioned it a bit. Stats are, in fact, an important part in this new subgenre. Start with skill check since I've already mentioned it. The skill check stats decides how big your skill check is and how much progression the skill check adds if you click the golden area. Movement speed decides how fast or slow your tune is. Stamina decides how much stamina you have. Stealth decides if the Twisted prioritizes you over the other tunes, along with how far they can spot you. And finally, extraction speed determines how fast you extract from most machines. This may seem like a wonderful time to get into the other games, but we still have ground to cover. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, genre is defined as a style, especially in the arts, that involves a particular set of characteristics, while Andrew Wille, Writing Studio, defines subgenre as a even more specific grouping within a genre. In this case, the other games I'm about to go over and Danny's World is a new subgenre within the survival game genre under this definition. This is due to their similar game loop, like I mentioned earlier. With all of that out of the way, we can go into the other games. These games are Twilight Zone, Anchored, and Dolly's Factory. The first game we'll go over is, of course, Twilight Zone. The game's pretty similar to Danny's World in a lot of ways. Instead of tunes, there's stars. Instead of twists, there's spirits. Instead of trinkets, there's relics. The shop has a similar mechanic to Danny's World if you don't buy from it for too long. the lethal will try and kill you. Instead of Danny being the lethal, it's Twilight. There is a key difference between both lethals. You can play Twilight, while you can't play Danny's. There's machines, which are more or less the same. You hit skill checks. The skill checks adds way more progression than in Danny's World. You also get 3 relic slots, while in Danny's World you only get 2. This is a running theme between all these games. A lot of floors look relatively similar, which makes navigation hard, and they're hotel-based. Besides that, it's a fun game. The stat loadout is relatively similar, though extracting speed is called repair speed instead. And it has a very basic loop, just like Danny's World. Now there's something unique to this game, actually. You have the ability to trap spirits. It's, which basically makes the spirit gone from the floor entirely. This game is the most like Danny's World, though. Next up is Anchored, which I think is the most unique one compared to all these. There's a variety of puzzles instead of just the same one over and over again, which I think adds a lot of variety. It makes extracting, or what is equivalent to extracting, much more fun. Instead of tunes, you play as climbers. Climbers have unique stats and abilities, just like tunes, and just like stars. Basically, every single one of these games characters has this, so I'm not going to repeat it again. The key difference is how the stats are measured, though. Instead of stars, they're measured with letters. Climbers have to survive each floor, which is riddled with sentinels. Sentinels are the game's equivalent to Twisteds. Unlike Twisteds, sentinels are actually not a counterpart to climbers, and you can even buy some from the shop. I think they're very adorable. After a couple floors, you'll get shops and a shop and a card, just like the other games. I mean, basically the only game who doesn't have the card mechanic is actually Dolly's Factory. And they work very similar to Danny's World once again. You also get to hear some cool voice acting. Oh yeah, there's a boss fight. Danny's World actually does have a boss fight, Dial, but this predates Dial, so But there's still similar gameplay loop. Dolly's Factory has the same similarities I've mentioned before. There's a shop, Twisteds called Rejects, tunes called Plushies, trinkets called Charms, and machines. 2 plushies can do a machine at once. The stats are rather unique, as it is displayed using bars instead of stars. Health is also its own unique stat, much like in Anchored. In Danny's World, all tunes besides mains, have 3 health. This isn't the case for Dolly's Factory. The skill check is a bit more fancy, but it's basically the same, all things considered. After all of this, you may wonder, why should we make a subgenre based on these games? Well, they're all similar. That's it. Very simple. They all have multiple key characteristics shared upon them. Machines, enemies, floor progression, and a shop. They also have the same gameplay loop, assuming you don't have a distractor, that is. You do machines, get chased by enemies, complete a floor, then repeat. Some of the games have stuff to spice this up, like Anchor's boss fights. But I think they should be expected within the same subgenre. Besides, the gameplay loop doesn't always get broken, as these are only specific circumstances. On top of this, Danny's World also has stuff to keep the gameplay loop from going stale. They have floor events, like blackouts and iCore leaks. They have, and to add more challenge. Same goes for the Dials floor that I mentioned earlier. Then there's the Twisteds that don't outright chase you, like R&D and Roger. On top of this, Twisted Glisten is a huge break from the gameplay's loop, as you have to stay close to him unless he gets angry and attacks, which isn't a good thing, as he's fast. All in all, I think these games should have their own subgenre. The subgenre shall be called floor progression. Thanks for watching the video all the way through.